Bonjour, Quay. Hello, Dieve. Quay. My name is Dr. Frances Gully. Quay is hello in Mima, and I live in Logie Bay on the island of Katamquacook, which would have been a traditional. Part of it would have been traditional Beothuk and traditional Mima territory, and I had the great pleasure of studying with Dean Simon of the Halibou Band during the pandemic and trying to learn some Mima. And I didn't learn that much, but I loved it. It was fascinating, and he's a wonderful teacher. And will try and learn more again. But then I realized I needed to get back to learning my Irish. I'm originally Irish, and I've lost a lot of my Irish language and my French. So I've gone back. So much to learn and practice, and yeah, so I had I really tried hard with Mima for a while, and then I realized, oh gosh, I gotta get back to the Irish. Anyway, so sorry about that, but that's what's with all the languages. The Dia Eva Cordia is hello, my friends in Irish, and I laughter apart. I really think we're all going to be better if we all make an effort to support these indigenous languages, these non-imperial languages, because indigenous peoples were much closer to the land, and the language is contained in that. Like in Irish, for example, the word for a wolf is Machantira, which means the son of the land. So there's these phrases and things, and in different I love Professor Robin Wall Kimmerer, who's Native American scientist and leader for the environment and all sorts of things, and just a beautiful human being. And I'm gonna, you're right, I'll say her language incorrectly. Potawatomi, I think it is. But like they have like words in their language, meaning like there's a word that means, oh, it's a beautiful sunny day, and the sunlight is pouring down and things like that. So there's all this closeness to nature and life and beauty that now don't get me wrong, I love the English language. But I think there are connections to nature that are part of indigenous languages when people loved the land and place that they're in, and people still do. And I think wherever we've landed, wherever our ancestors were from, we've got to love this land. That's what I think is really important. We've got to get back to loving the land and the people, but everything in it. We have to love our friends, the trees, our animal kin. Yeah, we have to get back to loving and away from our tendency. We humans can get very destructive. Boy, we're sort of in a destructive phase at the moment, and we've got to get out of it because this is a beautiful planet, and we don't have a planet B, and we really have to sort of get our heads together and calm down and get back onto the planet. So I'm sort of laughing at myself because I actually had a very exceptionally pleasant few days. Now I have to say, I've been very fortunate for periods of my life, very fortunate. Long periods of my life, I've had a very, very pleasant lifestyle. But I've had a more difficult period since about 2008, and then my late husband, Dr. Gideon, who was Vietnamese, was very ill for the last 6 years of his life, and he died. So that was hard for him, especially, and then it was hard for his family, for many people who loved him, and for myself and our sons. It was all hard. And then and Dio was came as a refugee to Canada. He left Vietnam with 7 of his younger siblings on the deck of a Korean warship going to Busan, just one day before the fall of Saigon, now Ho Chi Minh City, to the Viet Cong. And that's quite a story. And everything about his family is quite a story. And the entire population of Vietnam went through war after war after war. Like they've been so traumatized. And that's true for most of Asia. There's been so many wars, so many people dying, and such terrible conflicts. And at the same time, there's the great beauty of all the lovely traditions like Taoism, which I adore, and the Jains, and certain branches of Hinduism, Buddhism, are all so much to do with, compassion and kindness and loving kindness. And this is what we so need at the moment. And there's so much wisdom in these traditions. And Thio's mother was related to Cardinal Nguyen, who was a darling man who spent 13 years in a communist prison, 9 in solitary confinement, and then finally was released and did a lot of work aiming for peace, and before he died. And so Cardinal Nguyen was a great spiritual leader, and while he was even in prison, he found ways to use twigs and things to say the mass, and he wrote little notes to his flock. He was so concerned about people, and he was he went through a lot. And because the communists were really very brutal to all clergy at one point. And I was amazed at the courage of the Buddhist and the Catholic clergy. I'm sure there was other clergy. They were the ones I met when I did go to Vietnam with my husband in 1999, and the fact that they were working there and trying to help despite all the repression and everything. I found it very impressive. So I was not really surprised when I heard Bishop Pham in Los Angeles, going to try and be with refugees who are being could be targeted by these ICE agents or these other people with the mask, whoever the heck they are, that are rounding up people and pulling parents away from their children and doing all this sort of disgusting things, to poor people and people who don't have money, and it's always so heartbreaking to see the sort of person that will treat a person who has money fawn over somebody who has money, fawn over the, these multimillionaires who are spending multi-millions on their yachts and their this, that, and the other, and treat people who don't have money like dirt. It's not very nice, is it? No, not very impressive. But anyway. So that's the thing, yeah. And then of course, but I was so happy to see Bishop Pham because, of course, this is of course what Christianity is about. It's about being loving and being with the people who are in need. It is not about being with, the Musks and Thiels and Zuckerbergs and and Trumps and all these money people. It's not really what the whole thing is about. But anyway, there you go. So, but I no, it's not to say that I don't like all the nice things in life. I somehow or other, I did see part of the wedding, and I thought Ivanka Trump looked beautiful. She's always looks beautiful, and so that's nice. That's nothing wrong with that. But it's just when you're flaunting your wealth and other people are starving, then there is a problem, a real problem, particularly if you're contributing to the starvation. And I would love Jeff Bezos to go and speak, with Vandana Shiva, because she strikes me as a person of great integrity and great intelligence, and she claims that Bezos made a lot of his money in India, and she claims that he made it off the backs of Indian farmers, and that up to 300,000 of them died by suicide because of whatever Bezos was into in India. Now, I don't know if that's fair or not to him. So maybe he can, in between all his flitting around the world, maybe he can spend a bit of time to maybe invite her to come, and maybe they can have a discussion and try and see if this can be resolved. But I didn't like the sound of any of this, and I was reading about his first wife and how incredibly generous she has been, and how she gives away billions. And I think I saw something about that today, and I really, really, really would say thank you to her, and thank you to the people who have wealth and who are generous and kind. And of course, there are lots who are very wealthy and very generous and very kind, and that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So it's not like we all have to be in the same economic strata. But as a physician, I can tell you that massive inequality is extremely bad for everybody's health. Massive inequality. Like at this moment, June 28th to 2025, we humans, all 8 billion or whatever, how many of us there are living at a time with the worst inequality in entire history of humanity. Worse than under the Egyptians and the pyramids and all this sort of thing. Worse than ancient Rome. Isn't that really not that doesn't say much for us, does it? Yeah. We don't need to be, the sort of collectivization of the Soviets we know was a disaster. And so don't tell me I don't know how bad communism is, because my husband fled communism, so I've heard all about it, and not just him. I have a lot of Polish friends, Chinese friends, I have Tibetan friends. I've been involved with the Tibetans since 1980, and boy, have the Tibetans suffered. At least 25% of the population has died since the brutal invasion of the People's Republic of China. And it's going on right now. Right now, the People's Republic of China are separating every single Tibetan child from their parents, along with every Uyghur child, and they're putting a lot of people into concentration camps, and all the children are forced to be educated purely in Mandarin. Is there anything wrong with them learning Mandarin? No, but they should be allowed to keep their Tibetan and their Uyghur and their own traditions and their own religion. So what is happening in Tibet right now is appalling, and it has been happening since for the past 75 years. So don't ever accuse me of being pro-communist, because I am not. Anyway, and I know what's going on in Venezuela, Maduro, and all this sort of thing. I am against all authoritarians and all collectivization and all abuse and cruelty of every kind. Anyway, the evidence is that we humans are fine at living in a stratified society where some people are very wealthy, so long as other people have their basic needs met. And there are very, very spiritually advanced people who don't sort of need anything because they are so spiritually advanced. Now, most of us, definitely, I'm not in that category, and most people aren't. But most people are fine, with some, people are talking about a universal basic income, for example. And many people will be fine with just a basic income, which allows them to live with some dignity, allows them to have a roof over their head, food, and access to transportation. And no, it doesn't make everybody lazy and so on, but it has to be done very carefully. You have to watch out for fraud, all that sort of thing. And then there has to be a limit, a ceiling on the other end. I don't know where it is. I think it's probably around 100 million. Maybe it's a billion. But people don't need multiple billions. And if they're having multiple billions, then that means that children are starving. That's what it comes down to, because there's only so many resources. So these people who have to compete with their hundreds of billions, that's not needed, and it is not good for anybody, and it doesn't seem to bring out the best in them. And in the case of Peter Thiel, it's brought out some really bad things, because Peter Thiel is the one who funded Trump, who's one of the people who really funded Trump 1.0 and all the abuse and cruelty and nastiness and attacks on science. Peter Thiel is the one who attacked Elizabeth Warren when she was talking about a wealth tax, a perfectly reasonable thing. And actually, Bill Gates Sr., a fantastic man, was co-founder inequality.org. Are you going to tell me Bill Gates Sr. was like a communist or something? No, he wasn't. He was a successful American businessman who realized that massive inequality is actually terrible for the economy. Really bad for the economy, because this U-shaped economy is really bad for innovation, for economics, it's bad for the environment, and it's terrible for children. Because the research shows that kids born into this very high strata or into royal families and all this sort of thing, these kids of emperors and all this sort of thing, they're under such pressure that they suffer terribly. Occasionally there are parents who manage to protect their kids, but a lot of the time the children in the really high level, ultra rich, they may be reared by nannies, some of whom might be wonderful and some of whom might not be wonderful, which might be where there are so many problems. So because children are so vulnerable, babies are so vulnerable, and so when there's poverty and neglect, that's a problem. So it tends to be, and unfortunately, domestic abuse and partner abuse can happen at every strata of society. So it's a very, very challenging thing to deal with, and affecting many families and many children, and of course we had all the horror of the clergy scandals in Roman Catholic churches. Here where I live, my church had to close, and another church near me closed. So we've been very awful. Pedophilia is a horrible thing, and the adverse childhood experiences study shows very clearly that sexualization of children under the age of 18, probably higher, but the study went to 18, may have negative effects on the health of that child. Decades later, they have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, certain types of cancers, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, anxiety and depression, all the things that are now epidemic, and they're putting so much pressure on our healthcare system. So we really need to try to support our young mothers and fathers and everybody who loves children, and protect those children. And there's a huge difference between protecting a child and deciding to give an embryo, a fertilized embryo that's not implanted, personhood, which is apparently just happened in Alabama, which is insane. And this is the sort of insanity that led to the brutal and the links of this to the very misguided theologians who came up with the idea that, oh, yes, life begins at fertilization. No question about that. No question about that. And I happen to believe in God, but whether you believe in God or what do you call it? Whatever you believe in. But the thing is that for those of you who claim to be anti-abortion because you're religious, well, then God, the Creator, in His wisdom, created us in a way that about 25% of pregnancies are not successful. Women miscarry, or they have ectopic pregnancies, or there's other things that happen. So that and for everybody involved, for the mother, the father, the extended family who really want a baby, infertility and miscarriage, and worst of all, the death of a child at term is heartbreaking. It's dreadful. And yet this is part of the great mystery of life. This is somehow, I don't know why exactly. Well, I just think there has to be reasons for this, but I don't know what they are. I just know it's very, very heartbreaking and sad. And I mean, I know medically, as a physician, that there are all sorts of different reasons, and there are people who specialize in fertility and infertility and high risk pregnancies, and they're wonderful people. And this is the sort of thing that's being defunded because of a little cyber criminal called Big Balls and Elon Musk and Doge and all this madness, all this attack on science, all this attack on doctors and Harvard, all led by a really, really, really confused, deranged, toxic ideology that has come up with these really horrible ideas, horrible, vicious ideas. That's just cruelty on steroids. Oh my gosh! And then the level of deceit and deception, and the fact that Trump says he doesn't know anything about Project 2025 and said that a million times last summer, and he's following Project 2025 to the letter, along with this other manifest destiny crap, rubbish, terrible stuff. All this cruelty, all this things. Oh my Lord, dear God, help us. Anyway, as I said, I had been trying to work on things I needed to do, and trying to, I teach a course that I trained to teach on compassion, cultivation, training, meditation, which was designed to help people who are compassionate and empathetic and working in as first line responders. Well, it's good for anybody, this course, but it is really for people who are in teacher, people in education, people, first responders, people who are sincere people fighting crime, like police and legal system and so on. Not these thugs, but for people who actually, and there are many who go into these professions with the goal of making life better and safer, and trying to make everything work better for everybody, and to protect babies and children and everybody else from people who are sadistic and cruel. Oh, so it's such a mess right now, such a mess. Anyway, so so I have for months been just sort of working on things I need to get done, and trying to let people know about teaching this course, which is actually very helpful, and teach the course and so on. And so I haven't been bazzing of much, but yesterday was my younger son's birthday, and I'm very lucky tragically, I lost my husband in 2014, but I have two lovely sons, and it was one of them, Bert, and one of them, I have his pleasure of his company and my dogs, and it does get a bit too lively for me at times, but it's good. I love the company and everything, and so yesterday it was his birthday, and he wanted to have a party, so he asked if I could go and stay somewhere, and I did. So I had a great time. I went off, stayed at a hotel downtown, and I met my other son for supper. Had a lovely time, and I got up and I had a lovely swim in a pool there. Since I had my breast cancer treatment, I haven't been able to swim, but I did swim today, so that was great. And I met a very nice friend of mine. So I had like a fantastic break for 24 hours, and then I came back and I turned to see what was happening on the news on Substack. So first and foremost, I am so sorry for everybody, for the starving people of every age and size in Gaza, all those children, so sorry. I'm so sorry for the Israeli and Palestinian people who want peace, who want a ceasefire, who want an end to this horror, and who don't want a major war with Iran. They want serious peace efforts, and there are huge numbers I know of people, all different people, trying to do everything possible to bring an end to the misery and suffering of Gaza. And now starving people being shot, it's just in their hundreds. I don't know what the numbers are exactly, but it's all awful. So I'm really sorry about Gaza, and I'm really sorry for the ALMAP people. That's a group of hundreds of civil organizations trying to bring peace, and they had a special meeting in Paris, and then this war in Iran started, and I know people were stuck in Paris without money and things. I don't know what's happened there. I know then they were standing together, which is not for profit that I try to support. They were trying to get funds to have bomb shelters for the Palestinian Bedouin who don't have bomb shelters and who are en route now because of these Iranian missiles going on. So there are such good people. The Women Wage Peace, the Canadian Friends of Peace Now, and in Israel, the Peace Now people. There's Combatants for Peace. There's American Friends of Combatants for Peace. There's a Paragon. And then there's a lot of different Palestinian organizations. There's Palestinian Christians, Palestinian Muslims, and they're all trying to bring an end to the devastation and the horror. There's Breaking the Silence. These are Israeli military who are speaking out about the atrocities being carried out and how they don't want anything to do with it. Some of them are conscientious objectors. There's so many good people trying their best to end this absolute horror, disgrace to humanity. And what is Marco Rubio, God love him. I mean, he just has to be in a state of terror that he's doing all this stuff. He's now attacking the judges on the International Criminal Court for calling out both people on the Israeli side and the Hamas side for genocide. And he's gone after those judges. And they're going after other judges. And now the Supreme Court of the US has done really bad stuff again. Oh my God. Like, where is, anyway. So meantime, Charlie Angus, who's a wonderful, wonderful Canadian, he is writing on the resistance, and he was talking very appropriately about the attack on vaccines, which is, as a former pediatrician, I just can't believe it. I cannot believe that people would get rid of the entire vaccine committee. I just can't believe it. Such an important area and does such good work. And then there's Sally Blue, who's I just read a big story she wrote about. I have to check the name, but it was an American who ended up flying or go who escaped Jim Crow and went to France and was the first African American to fly planes for the French in World War One. I know, a total heroic man, and then he wasn't recognized in his home country, but at least the French recognized him. And then but he needs to be recognized, and I have to go and learn his name. But it's a fascinating story she wrote about. And then there's Cole, who's a young Canadian journalist, and he's talking about the latest awful stuff Trump is doing, and Danielle Smith, and all this. I didn't see anything at the moment from Bill McKibben. He writes The Crucial Years, but Bill McKibben is a fabulous, fabulous environmentalist, and everything he does is excellent. And then Gideon Blundell is new to me, and so he talks to, where's the other guy? Zev, that's why I was trying to get their names. Oh, I can't seem to find that now. Anyway, they are very informed about all the shenanigans Trump is up to, and Zev wrote a very, very intelligent piece about how there's all this manipulation that there are these that the Americans keep getting drawn into wars. Vietnam, one of them. So it's really a proxy war. I mean, the Vietnamese died in huge numbers and suffered horrendously in what's like a struggle between Russia and China on one hand and the US and their allies on the other. And the problem is, guys, it's not like we're playing soccer or basketball or it's the Olympics. It's okay if you want to go for your side for the Olympics or for sports. Nobody actually wins a war. And particularly now, we have these nuclear weapons and these 30,000 pound bombs, like that are the equivalent of an earthquake. I was listening to a beautiful, I haven't got her name straight, I have to get it, but an Iranian Canadian speaking very beautifully about how awful this is, to these bombs that Trump unleashed in a country that's prone to earthquakes. And I know Turkey is too, and they've had terrible earthquakes lately, and North Africa. So, these huge bombs, we have such a destructive side to our nature, and we humans, and we have to get past this. Anyway, then there's Scott Dworkin, who's a total hero, who's like working away, for a long time, trying to really lawfully and legally deal with Trump and the evil that's all around him. There's no other word for it. Evil. Scott Dworkin doesn't say that. I am saying that, but he and this woman Jess, they're very sane, and they're organizing non-violent, legal, lawful ways of trying to deal with the horror that Trump has unleashed. And then there's the wonderful Mary Trump, and I'll have to see what she's saying now, but she's such a good person, and she's always right in terms of the morality and the of the immorality of Donald Trump and the people who support him. And she's just a really good person. And Tom Hartman, I have to see what he's saying. Another extraordinary man who, I don't know how he does all he does, because he's got a radio show. I've got some of his books. Brilliant. And he's very direct about how damaging these policies are, what hypocrites the current GOP members are, and how it's the Republicans who have increased the debt every year since Reagan. Like he doubled it, tripled it or something, Reagan, because they're so into war. Oh dear. Anyway, then there's Hart's blog, which I have to study. That's because he's an environmentalist and I haven't had a chance to properly see what he's saying, and I need to learn more. And then there's Carol Caldwelder. She talks about the oligarchy, How to Survive the Brother Cockade. She's really worth paying attention to. Walter Ream, who I love reading, I'd rather be writing. He's an American writer, and he's talking about, he's got a very humane approach to life, and he's talking about how to emotionally manage what is really an impossible situation for people in America at this time. And then I have to see what's happening with Margaret Atwood, who's icon, brilliant, fantastic Canadian icon of writing, one of the best writers ever. And I have to see what she's writing about now. Last year, she was writing about what happened in the French Revolution, and it was very illuminating but troubling. Yeah. And Craic and Cast, who are doing everything they possibly can to stop Trump 2.0. And then, of course, Letters from an American. There's Professor Heather Cox, which is how I found Substack in the first place. Just a wonderful, wonderful historian, scholar, human being who really is very good at explaining, because I didn't know anything about American history. I found Heather, Professor Cox Richardson, in June 2022, because I was trying to work out what the heck happened with Roe versus Wade. And I have to, mea culpa. I grew up very traditional Irish Roman Catholic, and for most of my life, I fell for, abortion is a mortal sin. Abortion's a mortal sin. Abortion's a mortal sin. Like, first of all, we never even talked about it because it was a mortal sin. And when I was growing up, contraception was a mortal sin too. So was, I don't know if what was about divorce. We didn't, none of it was mentioned, because you couldn't mention it. It was all a terrible sin. And I went through medical school, and none of this was discussed. No, because it was illegal and a mortal sin. And actually, the person who got the gold medal in my class, Dr. Brian McGovern, he did bring it up once, and he got first class honours because he brought it up, and explained why it was a mortal sin. And he was a brilliant, wonderful person, and was gold medalist, went to the Boston Mass, like one of the best hospitals in the world, and did fantastic work as a cardiologist. And then, poor man, he was married with children and everything right, lovely family, and he was shot. Some person came in, he had no contact with that person. Somebody came in to planning to shoot themselves, and also shot him because he just happened to be there. This is some time ago now. It's terrible tragedy. And I remember reading how somebody's a really good doctor. You read all the comments from their patients, and hundreds and thousands, at least hundreds of people wrote how much he had helped them and how kind he was. He was brilliant and kind. So you never know what is going to happen. And then there's Micheál O'Sullivan, and he is a beautiful Irish poet, writer, and he's writing all about Celtic ideas and poetry, and not about politics, and a really good, refreshing change. And I don't have the rest of my list here, so I'm lost now. So anyway, so I'm going to leave it there today and go walk my dogs. But so I made the mistake of watching. I was talking about this, how bad it is that they're attacking people over abortion without understanding. Oh, I was saying, because I thought it was mortal sin. Really, as a physician, I tried to avoid it. I was in hematology, so I didn't know much to do with it. And then it was really only after Wade versus Roe, I started looking at the data and discovering, that when you don't have therapeutic abortion, the people who suffer most are girls and women who want to have babies and who end up having an ectopic pregnancy or something. And now there's some really strange Republican woman who's blaming the Democrats because she had an ectopic pregnancy and didn't get care. She's blaming them. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know, but I now do know that therapeutic abortion is absolutely essential for the health of girls and women for all sorts of reasons. And it's a therapy. It is not, and it should never be criminalized. And anyway, it's just awful. So um, anyway, I turned on to there's so much going on with the new war with Iran, with the new attack by Trump on what's he attacking now? Oh yes, digital. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Um, so I turned on the funeral of Melissa and Mark Hortman, and I already had heard what a wonderful, wonderful human being she was, and what like her Republicans were crying over her death, and oh, she just was such a good person. And then her children seemed to be just such a lovely family. And then I discovered the dog Gideon, and of course I'm a dog lover. Oh, so that deranged, poor, misguided idiot, that some very bad theology there had that man murdering people. And not only did he murder the husband and wife, he shot the dog. Oh my god! And it was a golden retriever. How could you shoot a golden retriever? Like, what sort of a monster are you? You like goldens? Anyway, I've had two goldens, and Gideon was there in an urn, and then they had the paws people or whatever because he'd come from. They had adopted him because he was supposed to be a therapy dog, and he was too friendly, which I can totally get. And they had the other dogs there. And there were all these people coming, and President Biden and Kamala Harris was there, and anyway, people had driven and stood for 6 hours, and so it was already very, very, very sad and emotional. I mean, that happened some time ago. I'll have to look again, but I didn't know about the dog. And then they had the vets they tried to save the dog, and then they really couldn't. Poor dog. Oh my god, the dog. So I was just so sad, so sad. And then I came across this other thing that was very heartwarming, but also had me crying about a lady named Donna Tucker, and she owns a bakery called, I think it's Eat Cakes, and somehow or other, this other lady, Velvet, somebody had there was a trauma and death in the family. Anyway, she ended up becoming homeless, and her little dog Sissy was, I think, 15 years old, and she couldn't go. She was sleeping out of doors because, of course, she couldn't leave her dog. I couldn't leave my dog. That's actually it's a big story, but that's partly why I am where I am, and I had such a difficult move and everything because I wanted to keep my dogs. Yes, so I totally get it. I was afraid so many things have happened that I was going to end up in a homeless or something, and I know that's the whole problem. If you're homeless, you can't keep your pets. So it's this is because my husband died, I lost my job, I had breast cancer. Not a good series of events. But anyway, it's not, no, I didn't yet. Thanks to God, hopefully I'm going to stay out of Tent City. But that I was like, oh my god, I'll have to tell that woman to come here with her dog. but people raised $61,000, and she's got a little house, and please God, everything will work out, and the little dog is there. So that was enough for me. Sorry, I was just finished. I know there are more serious things in the world, but the dogs, the fact that deranged man shot the golden retriever, as well as Melissa Hortman, who seems to have been like the most wonderful of people, and her husband, and all the family and everybody involved. Her two children seem to be just the most lovely people. And then they also shot the dog. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, they're so sad. And then the other poor lady who's homeless with her dog. I'm thinking I'm gonna have to find out some way of helping homeless people here of animals. I don't know what we're going to do. Yeah, there's a lot to think about, but yes. Anyway, and I teach a course, and I'm hoping to get people to take the course with me again, starting next July 4th, yeah, and July 9th, if possible, online. If anybody's interested, compassion, cultivation, training, meditation, and it is to calm the mind, and to it does give coping skills for all the stuff, all the intense emotions of everything that's going on at the moment. But you wouldn't think it by me today as much the dogs. So anyway, so first of all, I'm send my deepest sympathy to the Ukrainians, to everybody who's stuck in danger in a war zone, who's been bombed, who's been shot at in a war zone, or in a crime infested, anybody who's in danger, and the people who to all the people who join, who put on a uniform, whether it's police or military of any type, for the right reasons, to try and defend people and to try and protect everybody from psychopaths and criminals. And so that's where my sympathy goes. And then it's to all the members, to the members of the resistance in the People's Republic of China, where you can't even open a branch of Amnesty, to Amnesty International, which is an organization I recommend to everybody, to all the people in Russia who are peace activists, a lot of whom are very young, who are just put away for life. Not to mind the people in that awful prison in Iran. Did they bomb that prison? And some of the Iranian activists got a Nobel Prize recently. They're lovely people. These are so anyway. To all the people who practice non-violent resistance to evil, and who try to protect and heal and help children, people of all ages, animals, and our entire planet. All the people who are trying to say we cannot just go on. This is 2025 is the hottest year on record, and there's all these droughts and famines. Oh, I haven't even got as far as talking about my little friends in Malawi and how much they're suffering, and they're in need of so much support because they're affected by this bad weather and so on, and they don't have the infrastructure, and they're trying to help these poor kids who have nothing, absolutely nothing. So yeah, so there are a lot of problems at this time, but the thing is, the majority of us, that those latest research shows 70% of people know we have to do something about climate change, how we're going to do it, what we're going to do, but we have to change, and we have to do something about pollution and all this, and we have to stop all this deforestation, industrial farming, industrial fishing, industrial forestry. It's very, very destructive, bad for our health and bad for the health of our planet. And of course, war is disastrous for everybody's health. So we have a lot of work to do. It's hard to know where to start. But anyway, Ihawa, good night, bonsoir, and thanks for listening.